Welcome to this episode of the Elite Advisor Podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to April Rome. April is my COO. She has been a gift to our company to come in and focus on operations. That is not my superpower. And today, we're going to walk you through the process of us working together and the main things we had to address in my practice in order to prepare us to double in size. So we'll unpack a lot of practical things from hiring to how do we have clean data and what the process has been like for that. And I know this will help your practice. April, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
So you are usually right next door to me in the office, but in Nashville right now we have ice storms, power lines, trees exploding. So it's wild times.
We do. We are doing the best we can.
That's right. I'm excited about this episode. Luckily, I prefaced before not to share too much since we work together, and I don't want everybody to know how challenging I could be to work with, but we'll be as honest as we can.
We will.
We've read books about how visionaries should work with operators, and the language we've had to develop with each other over the last few years. It's been a great learning curve.
It has. It's been fun.
All right, so let's dive in. I think at a high level, you are in charge of operations. I think you were built to be in operations. It's how your mind works. Right. You've been in this industry for how long now?
Wow. Going on like 25 years now.
Yeah. So you've seen a lot. You've interacted with a bunch of advisors, different parts of the business. So I'm curious at a high level, what has been your experience of how most advisors approach operations and what that relationship is like?
Yeah. So most advisors don't get into operations, right? That's not how their mind works. And that's why they hire, an admin or someone like that to just take care of it. And so what happens is over time, they just assume that it's being taken care of. So they don't really get into systems. They don't get into how things are done, and they just want it done, right? And so what happens is over time, you end up hiring new people. Things start to grow and then things break, right? Like, you burn your team out, your systems reach capacity, they break. Usually the people that you have on staff for small advisor firms anyway, it's usually an advisor and his admin, and they don't know how to fix things. And so they just put Band-Aids on things and get more software, and they just keep trying to layer on fixes and workarounds until finally it's just too much.
Well, I guess there is an element where you can't always just Band-Aid it. And I think I know a lot of advisors that are like, it's working well enough. We're not losing clients. So let's, put out fires as they come. Let's have a general framework for how we onboard people. But I rarely run into a practice where I'm like, they have it dialed in. And what's scary, and I've heard this from other advisors, is they've gotten to a place where like, it might be time to exit, pass my practice to somebody else internally or sell it. And they realize, man, I wish I would have respected and appreciated the operation side of my business a lot more. Because I know for me, sometimes it can feel like let me just meet with clients. But for the team to not get overwhelmed, for your process to be repeatable, which means profitable and efficient, and to be able to take on more clients without it breaking it for everybody else, like that is pure operations all day long.
It is. Yeah. So the problem I see that I've always seen whenever I step into an advisor's office, they have way too much tech. They're not using it properly. They don't have SOPs. The procedures are broken. The systems are broken. They don't have clear point A to point B, like resources to fix things. And so that's usually, what has to happen first. It's just peeling back like all the layers to figure out what the core issue is and trying to simplify things. Because usually you don't need 8 different techs, right? You need one good CRM. You need everything in one place. You need good SOPs. You need good people that know what they're doing. So trying to fix all of that. Once you fix that, then you're ready for growth.
I think what's hard for advisors, at least for me over time, is the operation stuff isn't like an immediate gratification type of deal. And what we'll talk about today a little bit is why we agreed in 25 to like slow down, which is hard for me in order to get healthy, in order to grow, because I have lived out making operations a secondary idea leads to frustrated team members, that when you lose a team member, you don't know how to really retrain. So I get pulled back into it. That while things feel okay, and there's advisors right now that feel like, hey, I think it's working well enough. Have you tested it? Like, has it been put under pressure and has it come out the other side? Or are you just crossing your fingers and hoping nothing's going to break?
Right. Right. And that's usually what happens, right? They're like, oh, well, let's grow first and then we'll figure out the rest later, or my team will figure it out. But most of the time, by that point, they're too busy. They can't figure it out. Right. And when you have so many people that are just operating in this broken system, which I've seen and I've operated in that system before, where you're like, okay, well, this is broken. So here's the workaround, but you're so busy that you can't fix it. So, what we decided to do is fix it first, right? We knew we were planning for growth. We knew we were, wanting to double in size, right? So because of that, you have to expand your foundation. You have to get the right people on the team. You have to create accountability. You have to get the right systems and make sure they're working. You have to create automations. You have to create all sorts of things that can survive with the new growth.
And we'll walk through each step of it. Well, for everybody listening, like we're going to be real with you guys, what we went through for this. But there was an element for me that in the past, I'd get pulled back into operations when things wouldn't work. And it just wasn't my strength. Like I could try to operate in that. But I think for all of us, like when we try to operate in something that's not our superpower, like it drains us. And as I reflect now, there was a season of business where I was like, I don't enjoy this anymore because I'm having to like fix problems. And like what I'm not doing is just meeting with clients and like solving their problems and loving on them. I'm doing that with maybe half my time. So therefore I can't grow because the other half of my time is trying to intervene in the operations process side when that's not my strength. So I know when we first met, there was an element of you coming in and saying, well, what's going on here? That like by some standards, people would look at our practice, be like, you guys did it. You have a lot of AUM. You're not losing any clients. But when an outside party, when you entered and you looked around, you're like, it's kind of working, but like it's not great. What was that like when you kind of first got introduced to Legacy? That by many standards was doing great, but as an operations person, when you came
Yeah.
in,
So I definitely saw the usual, right? Where it's just overworked teams. They're kind of running into each other. Everybody's kind of got their own version of CRM and note taking. They're not talking to each other. Things are being done like 2 or 3 times or not at all. You're being pulled into stuff. You don't have a dashboard with clean data. Getting clean data is stressing the team out. Just simple things of like running like your R&D list or running like show me a good clean client list. That shouldn't be hard to do when you have clean systems and data. But when everyone is kind of scrambling all the time and their hair's on fire every day, it makes it difficult to do those simple tasks, right? So yeah, cleaning up messes is what I've been doing for a really long time operationally, and look, kudos to most operations people because they are really good at covering it up. And when you have a really good operations person, they can work in chaos and they can keep it from you. And sometimes they don't even realize how bad it is, right? Because they're so good at working within the broken system and creating those band-aids and putting those little like temporary bridges in places that need to be so they can continue to serve their clients and open accounts and make distributions or whatever that is. But it can be so much better. And if you're really wanting to grow, you have to fix it because it will break.
Yeah. I know in our first season together, when you came in, obviously you got the lay of the land and we started improving things. We went through something where the team members on the team at that time were not willing to adopt the improvements. That, to your point, they had become fairly comfortable with solving problems as they came up, which again, in the short term is maybe okay. But when you do that over and over again, you feel like you have this like duct taped thing and you're just like, this is just a huge problem waiting to happen. And at times people feel exposed when they're held accountable. And I feel like that was a really hard season for us when it's like, hey, we were making some wins and all of a sudden it feels like, we maybe lost 2 or 3 people in months. And then I'm questioning the business. Like, am I a good leader? When you pull the Band-Aid off, I don't even know if you can be fully ready for it, but it's like, you got to be ready that a good decision might trigger a series of events that cause you to say, did we do the right thing? Because you can't quite see the healthy side of the tunnel
Hmm.
yet, but you got to move through that to get there, is what I've
That's right.
experienced.
I mean, that's what happens. You meet with these people, and usually they've been there for a long time, right? And they've worked really hard to create these temporary bridges and band-aids, and they're proud of it. And honestly, they should be, that they've held it together for so long. So whenever you tell them that you're going to have to break all of it and rebuild it, and that it's going to get worse before it gets better, so we can build a better future, right? That's hard. That's hard to take as an advisor and, the operations team. And some people, they don't like change, and they don't want to learn a new tech. And most of the time, whenever they don't want to, it's because they're already burnt out most of the time, and they just are like, I can't take anymore, is usually what happens.
So as we got through that season together, and we have great, healthy people on the team that now we're challenging. I love when you say it's high support, high
Right.
challenge, because I feel like that's who I want to be as a leader. I don't want to just be like the, just whipping people all the time, like work harder, work harder. But I also in the past struggle with like, hey, is everybody okay? And then the right people can support that. I just set fireworks off on my
So,
camera somehow. That was cool. Edit that, or maybe that is a more important statement than I think it was. So the tech picked up on it. But I know I was challenged as a leader in that time frame. Like for you as an operations leader, were you like, this is par for the course? What was going on in you as you were going through that change as well?
yeah, I mean, it's pretty normal. I mean, usually whenever I come into any new team, most people, I try to be really nice in the beginning. So
You're
I
the
know
bad
they're
guy.
not gonna like me with what I have to say, but if they can stick with it, usually what happens is if we can clean up the systems and the data, then you get to do the fun stuff, which is where you get to do the high challenge, high support. You get to have L10 meetings. You get to implement EOS. You get to set really cool targets and growth targets, because everybody's not running around with their hair on fire all the time, right? Because you have clean systems, things are working, you have SOPs, people are cross trained. So then you get to graduate from that level of just
Mm.
reactive mode, right? And you get to move on to bigger things, which is what we're doing now, which I love. We get to spend time thinking strategically and spend time in the conference room at the whiteboard and mapping out that client journey and how we can make it better, right? Because we're not just trying to figure out how to survive the day anymore. So, but it's getting, and then sometimes it is, you have to replace the team sometimes. And sometimes you do have a team that's willing to do it. So either way, you have to do it though, whether it's building a new team or convincing your current team that this is the way of the future, right? The way that we're going to grow and the way we have to do it.
Yeah, I think there's probably more than one way to make success. I think there's some people that are like, we're just brute force. We're going to acquire a bunch of practices, and we just hope the people with us are strong enough to endure that startup type, constantly changing environment. I know for us, we got to a point of change where we did have to step back and say, okay, operationally, we need to dial that in. And now I feel like our operations can
Mhm.
double. Now what we have to face is like, do we have enough advisors to prospect and deliver our advice in order to actually fill up our operations, which is a great place to be. But as a business owner now, I'm like, man, we have capacity, but now I feel this pressure to fill it, which we're working on. But because I want balance in my life, because I want to be able to leave at times and trust the machine is working, I think we did have to step back and say, I'm going to put a pause on growth mode. We're going to still meet and exceed our current clients' expectations. But I had to get out of that young advisor, grow at all costs mentality and say, I want this thing to be healthy and I want the team to be healthy. I want to trust the process because I need to trust if I put somebody into the process, it's going to deliver. And what's cool is as that's unfolding, I now have capacity to think about things like our annual kickoff meeting with our team. Like I can now inspire them for what's about to come because it's not going to be easy, but I don't think we're making it as hard on ourselves as we used to.
That's right. That's right. And I'm like so grateful that you let me do the work needed so we can grow, right? I mean, looking for advisors so we can really like turn the faucets on with our leads and everything is a really good problem to have now, right? It's kind of like whenever you're building like a skyscraper, right? If you're remodeling, you have to kind of build a bigger foundation first to support it. You can't just build a skyscraper on top of a 3-story building foundation, right? And so that's really what we've done. That's one thing that Sten's let me do for Legacy, which I'm so grateful for because we really are prepared to handle this. We have the right people on the bus, we have the right teams, we have the right systems, we moved to a new CRM. I mean, we've got all new tech, right? And programs and SOPs and everything to allow us to double in size and not really feel it at all. And so super excited about that. I mean, it's going to be a great year.
Yeah, I want to get into some of the real practical things we've added. One, let's talk about hiring and the process we have now. Because I think when you came in, the experience, I maybe hired some recruiters, or I just put a post out, or I asked other team members for referrals. Somebody would come in. I'd say, here's the role. What do you think? They'd seem pretty nice. And I'd say, hey, let's give this thing a try. While that worked well enough and I grew the business, I knew I was not attracting the right people in hindsight. I also, in hindsight, was not onboarding them with a lot of clarity, and I was not continuously challenging and keeping them. I just don't think I had capacity. I wasn't doing it on purpose. So walk us through kind of the hiring journey we've been on and where we are now, because it's light years ahead of where we started.
Yeah, sure. So, hiring people is always hard, right? I mean, you have to figure out first, okay, who do we need to hire, job description, all of that. And so we created like a hiring process, right, this year. And we created it out of necessity, not because we just thought it was a good idea. It was because we needed it, right? You hire people and people that interview for Legacy, honestly, they get so excited and they tell you what you want to hear. They're like, yes, I can do the job. Yes, I can do that. They're really nice people. But then you put them in the seat and you realize that they can't do it, right? That they're either not wired to do it or they don't have um, the right training or whatever that is. And so we really built a system to protect us from ourselves because I know I love meeting nice people too, and I love to give them a chance. But now that we've introduced and layered in a couple things that protect us from ourselves, we're finding that we're getting much better people that are way more qualified in there. And then we have we introduced the Colby assessment, right? Where the Colby doesn't lie. I mean, it really tells you what you're wired to do. And so I run it through, I make sure that they're going to get along well with Sten, that they're going to get along well with the team, that, I put the job description in with their Colby assessment, with their resume, and just, using AI for this has been amazing where we can really create this custom assessment to see how well they fit. And then we can rank all these candidates. So before we even have an in-person interview with them, we're able to get a really, really good read on whether this person is going to do well in the role.
Yeah, I think that's something we're running into now. For everybody listening, Colby, AI, job description, resume, put it through. I wouldn't make your hiring decisions 100% based on that, but it will affect your choice. So I've loved that element of our process. Adding friction, I think, is helpful. We also use Spark Hire currently, where we send them questions and they have to record themselves back. Again, it's like, are you willing to do some things to prove something to us? Has it helped us not hire the wrong person? And how many times has it saved us?
I mean, I hope so, right?
Yeah.
We this is a recent thing that we've done, and the few people that have come through it, they're still here and they're doing well. So I think it's working. Absolutely.
I think one thing we had to do recently, because we were trying to add a couple more advisors to the team, is to try to get really clear, like, is this advisor supposed to be like a rainmaker stud closer? Or do they need to be like a relationship manager, pretty good closer? And that's where we're trying to fine tune this. Because if we call them the first one, a Colby assessment may say that's not your person. If we call them the second one, the Colby would say this person could be a great fit. And so I think we're trying to get better at like being more specific about what is this role trying to accomplish, as opposed to saying it's operations, it's financial advice.
Sure.
The more specific we can be, I think the better.
That's right. Yeah, because I'm kind of finding that there's two different types of advisors, right? There's the rainmaker who may not be so well with planning or compliance, but they're good at getting clients to say yes. And then there is the planning, compliance, careful advisor, right? And so, I mean, in a perfect world, we'd find one that's great at both. But what we're finding is that you're either one or the other. So we're having to decide which one's most important for us right now.
Yeah, that's good. All right, let's talk about this. Is really practical. When you came into your role, when it came to our dashboard, our scorecard, it's something I was challenged with a long time ago. As a business owner, do I have up to date financial data and other key metrics to inform the decisions I'm making? Or, like most advisors, and if this convicts you, take note of it. Do I set some goals at the beginning of the year and then I just try to work hard and I hope it works out, which is how I operated for a long time. In your role, because obviously you have this like passionate operations person, in you there was times where you felt like I can do that, I can do that. And one of those things was like interim CFO in charge of our data. And it took us a while to figure out like that should not be on April's plate. You need to be aware of the need and help solve it, but you shouldn't take that on. So help unpack that experience with
Yeah,
us.
absolutely. I mean, so working with you, right? I mean, you wear a lot of hats, and I do have a pride issue, right? Where I'm like, I can figure this out. I can do it because that's just the way I'm wired. So being like the COO and the CFO is something that I'm like, definitely, I can handle that. Um, but as I got into it more, and then we started adding in the complexities, and we started, okay, well, now we get to do the fun stuff, right? Because we're not building the team anymore. So it's like we need projections, we need budgeting, we need forecasting, and that's all stuff that I'd never done before. But I thought I could figure it out. So I ended up spending quite a bit of time trying to figure this out. And as I'm trying to figure it out, I am kind of not doing so great at my COO duties at the same time, because juggling both was just not healthy. And in hindsight, right, we should have just outsourced it to begin with, but I really thought I could figure it out for a while. Um, then we
Sure.
ended up having, semi okay scorecards, and then some of the data wasn't accurate. So at that point, it's like, we definitely need to outsource this.
Yeah. And I think there's that element of, for me as a visionary advisor, business owner, and you as operations, it is good at times to say, I just want to help. I want to do everything possible. But there's also beauty in saying, like, but this is my lane. If something's coming into my lane, I still need to like raise my hand and say, hey, this is a problem. I can be part of finding the solution, but I don't always have to be the solution. So I know that's a challenge for me as well. But for us on the financial side, one element was just bookkeeping. Like it was like, do we have up to date data we can look at? And then the other element of that is the actual like CFO. Are we projecting into the future? Do we have some other party challenging us to say, hey, you're trying to hire two advisors? What makes that a good decision? At what point do they have to be successful in order for you to look back and say, we made money on that investment? And I feel, because I'm a pretty risk tolerant business owner, I've invested a lot of things in the past, but I don't think it was, from like a chess master standpoint of like, if I do this, then this happens. And I think we kind of owe that to our business and our team. And I feel so now we're stepping into this level of like high level bookkeeping. So we always know the data is clean, up to date, scorecards monthly, and then quarterly CFO. We brought somebody in to extract from me, Sten, what are you doing? Why are you trying to do it? Is there going to be a return on that? Because as a business owner visionary, I just love big ideas. I want to try stuff. I want to experiment on things so it helps our clients more. I'm learning I need somebody with a CFO mind that could feel a little dry and not exciting to me to come in and like make me prove it in a way.
That's right. That's right. And I think whenever we went to the Hermosi event, right, in Vegas, I mean, that's really, we both looked at each other and we were, our data is not as clean as as he
Yes.
wants it to be.
Yeah.
I think we both came back, and that's when we really figured out, like, okay, we clearly need really clean data to make better decisions. Because now that we're moving forward, like, let's think 2 years ahead. Let's make projections, but we need clean data for that, and we didn't have it, and so that was part of the journey of figuring out how to get it, and that was me taking it on, and then now we've gotten to a point where we're like, okay, we need the professionals to come in and do this for us because, for me to do my job well, I need to be able to lean on them and get information, but I shouldn't be the one producing the information. So,
Yeah. What would be, as we wrap up, your piece of advice, advisors watching? This could feel like a big undertaking. It definitely takes time to do it. What's kind of your first piece of advice when it comes to operations? For a practice, it's not big enough to have a full-time operations staff. It's dialed in. It's a 20 or less person firm. People are wearing multiple hats. What should they do on the operations front?
yeah, I think they should simplify. I mean, really, like, that's the first thing I do when I come in is I try to simplify, right? Like, do you have a good CRM? Are you using it well? Most CRMs these days can do everything for you. It has everything built into it. Don't have all these outside, like, static spreadsheets, right? And then make sure that your team, do a capacity test, maybe like stress test them and see how much they're spending their time doing certain things, right? Um, but really, what you need to do is you need to make sure your team can handle it so you have the capacity as a leader to make the decisions that you're making. And if you find that you're being pulled into operations all the time, then your team isn't handling it well, right? Because they should be able to handle everything for you so you, as the advisor, can make all the decisions you need to make and not have to worry about being pulled into operations.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between for the advisors listening, and this is true of me too, where you think your operations is and then actually where it is. And I think when we did ours, it wasn't broken. It was kind of working well enough, but there was this disconnect of, can this scale? Is this healthy? Mainly because I just didn't want to get involved in it. Like, if it wasn't fully broken, I was trying to stay in my lane. But if you are a business owner that owns a financial advisory business, there's some responsibility for you to be aware of the health of operations and then to somehow speak into the solution for it. Maybe not do it. Obviously, I had to bring in April to help with it. But I do think there's this awareness gap when I meet with a lot of advisors that they're kind of like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. While at the same time, their operations team's over there just
Yeah.
like, this is too hard. This is not fun.
Yeah. No, that happens all the time. And then a lot of the operations are kind of afraid to tell their advisor that they're, at
Mm.
capacity too. And so, yeah, I mean, you really do need to figure out what's happening with your operations team to make sure that they can handle any new growth that you're going to bring.
That's great. Thank you for being here. When the roads thaw out, I will see you in
Yes,
the
I'll see you soon.
office.